Hello and welcome to Let's Talk More on Monday. I'm your podcast host, Chloe, and we are continuing our Issue 9 Identity Contributor Chat series. So I am so excited to be joined by four amazing women today to talk about the Navigating Menopause piece. Thank you all so much for joining me. We're going to get into some information. If you like this interview, make sure to join us over on Patreon and save a seat with us. We're going to dig deeper with these contributors, and if you do support us on Patreon, you are helping us with our internship program and helping us outreach, make opportunities reachable for everyone, which is our goal. So, ladies, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to have you guys go around and introduce yourselves, say who you are and what you do. Let's start with you, Marlee.
Hey guys, I am Marlee Bruno. I am a board certified physician assistant. I own Mind, Body, and Soul Medical. That is an aesthetics and wellness facility in Pensacola, Florida. Founded the place because I recognized that there was a huge need for more holistic care in my community and felt a calling to do that at the same time that I needed to get out of emergency medicine because it's overwhelming. So it worked out perfectly. The timing and everything was wonderful.
Awesome. How about you, Bette?
Hi, yeah, I'm a management consultant. I own a consulting firm called Destra Consulting Group. I've been doing this work for over 20 years. I just love it. I partner with all kinds of organizations from small nonprofits to a Fortune 10 company in the space of leadership development and change management.
Awesome. We'll go clockwise. How about you, Danielle?
My name's Danielle Berry. I am a marketing manager at a local boutique hotel. I love being in hospitality because I think that being in the center of people and getting to create experiences is incredibly important. Have a huge photography background that I like to continue to work with more, and some small businesses to do some more like food photography and things like that. But ultimately, just working together to put together brands and make sure that people feel seen and heard in the work that they're getting to do.
Yeah. And you, Teresa?
Well, I'm Teresa Reynolds, and I'm a singer, actor, director, and kind of an all over creative person. I lived in New York for a long time and then moved back to Indianapolis about 6 years ago. And since I came back, I started a band, Teresa Reynolds and the Slick Tones, and I just have my hands in all kinds of creative endeavors.
Yeah, I love it, which includes this piece. So, for the purposes of our interview today, some of you had not met previously. You know, there was a photo shoot where Danielle took photos of Bette and Teresa, but Marlee wrote this piece. So, we're all kind of coming together for the first time, which is so much fun. So, Marlee, I want to start with you. You wrote this piece about navigating menopause. What was it like for you to write this article?
It was amazing to have written it because I feel like there is not enough conversation around this. And so my practice is primarily women patients that come in and they still don't know a whole lot about menopause at all. And what the realistic expectations are for when they go through menopause, or like, is there a way to soften the symptoms a little bit? Like there is so much misinformation out there also about menopause. And it's just not something that we talk about, but 50% of the human population is going to go through this, right? So like we don't talk about it enough. So I am thrilled to have even been able to write such a piece like this. I love talking about things like this.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think opening a dialogue is very important, and we'll get into it a little bit later. But it's something that women, people with uteruses, are going to go through, and oftentimes we go in unprepared, right?
Right.
So, Bette and Teresa, you guys were models for this piece.
Mhm.
So, you are both women going through menopause at this time. What has that experience been like for you? Did you have dialogues about it before it started happening?
Me personally, no. I'm going through it a little early for my age. I had my first hot flash at 40, and I didn't know that that was a thing that could happen at 40 years
Mhm.
old. And so I was just out to brunch and I was like, I think I'm going to pass out. What's happening? And once it went away, I thought, did I just have a hot flash?
Mm.
And so I went to my doctor and he's like, probably not. Cause at the time I had a 2-year-old child. And so I went to the doctor and he says, I don't think so, but let's check your levels. And he did. And he was like, huh, very interesting. Yeah, I think you had a hot flash. And,
Mhm.
and so I think one thing for me, I wish that I knew more before about how early it could come, symptoms and how early perimenopause could start.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and I love talking to Teresa at the photo shoot about our different experiences because mine is kind of on the opposite end. So I technically didn't go into menopause until I was 57,
Wow.
which is, that's a real, like Teresa, though, we're both outliers,
Mhm.
because the average age, Marlee, you probably know for sure, but I think it's 52. So
Mhm.
we're a little bit on the extremes there. And I had symptoms for 10 years. So I was in perimenopause for 10 years before I actually hit menopause. And
Wow.
even the doctors told me there was no way that I wasn't menopausal at my age, but I was still ovulating. So,
Oh my gosh. And see, like, I never would have even thought that it was possible to be perimenopausal for 10 years. So,
oh, yes.
but that's because we don't talk about it enough, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think
Um,
speaking of how we don't talk about it, I think part of, as a performer and a person who's like out in the public eye and everything, I thought a little bit about, like, do I really want to go and have a photo shoot and be like, yes, I'm the face of menopause. Um, but I really thought to myself, I'm not the only one. There are so many people going through this, and like, let's get rid of the taboo already.
Mhm.
Yes, yes, like, you can be this age, you can be young, and it doesn't mean that I'm like washed up or anything by any means. It's just, the next step in my body's natural cycle. And so that's why I thought it was so important that I kind of show my face and say, yeah, this is the face of perimenopause and almost menopause.
Yeah. What about you, Betty? What was it like, your experience of sharing your face as the face of menopause?
I've reflected on that a lot. It was actually, and I shared with Ariana, that was very empowering. So, and I think there was just so much about the whole circumstances and the photo shoot with Danielle and Teresa and the women who brought the flowers. But it was very supportive. And I thought back on an experience when I was in my mid 30s, and I did what I think at the time would be called like a boudoir shoot, right? Like you're in this stage of life where you're supposedly at your peak. And I have to say, I felt much more beautiful doing this shoot at 58. And because I just feel so much more comfortable with who I am and with my body. And
Yeah,
Danielle, you're smiling.
You're gonna make me
I
cry.
just felt so comfortable in front of the camera with you.
that's so amazing. Well, that brings us to you, Danielle. What was your creative direction for this photo shoot?
Yeah, so Ariana, when she first brought the story to me, one, it was a story that she felt very safe to be in my hands to continue to demonstrate. I have had a lot of ups and downs when it comes to hormones over the years. I've previously done pieces for more about women's health and about hormone health, and currently going through a hormone journey myself as well. Not quite premenopausal, but I can sympathize with those experiences. And so when we had the conversation, I one really wanted to hit on the piece of the identity when I started seeing them go crazy of the girls in all these different swimsuits diving into the pool and making it seem like it's just like a flower blossom to be able to have a period, where it is fantastic to be able to have a period, because there are some women who are begging to be able to have one who can't because they have fertility issues. And when you get to this next stage and it's menopause, when you have these conversations about what identity means, Teresa made a comment about like I don't want it to be that I feel washed up. And I think that through the conversation we were saying how can we have these how can we demonstrate this to where it's not Tampax commercial and feeling like there's a pink tax being thrown in your face, but how can we do this to where it feels empowering? And so hearing that Bette felt empowered in it, I was like, oh my god, I did my job. But I really we sat in that and we thought about it for a minute of how can we visually demonstrate this, and we thought about the cycles of flowers and the cycles of seasons. And there are a few florists that I have gotten the privilege to work with, Natalie from Still Waters Flower Farms, and her friend Beth were able to come along for the photo shoot. And we put together flowers of all these different stages. And when Beth and I and Natalie and I were having these conversations about what this means and what the kind of the vision was, Natalie went into, and I wish I could pull it up for you and show you how long of a scroll of a text message it was. And it was so beautifully written that I knew that this was exactly the right kind of shoot for us to be doing. And it was
Yeah.
talking about how it goes from seedlings to then you have a fully blooming flower farm, right? And then as things start to decay and go into the next cycle, it doesn't mean that it's just done. And I think that that's one of the biggest pieces when talking about identity and what that end of a cycle when it comes to having periods can look like in a transition to now it's getting to have a new identity, and who knows what seeds this flower are going to be produced together and create something completely new. And I think that that was just one of the fun parts of what we were able to demonstrate, and I can't wait for you guys to see the pictures and the masterpieces of headpieces and hand rings and all these different things we're able to pull together to just really show that it's not the identity of here's one lily, it's here's a lily and a daisy and it's put together and a ranuncula is up in there too, and it's whatever you want your identity to be. It's creating a whole bouquet, not just one single flower. And I think that just because one hormone cycle ends does not mean that your identity ends as well. And that was what we really, really tried to put together to be able to demonstrate and make these two women feel. And I hope that they felt beautiful in every kind of way. And I hope that someday when I am in that premenopause phase, that I get to say that I feel beautiful and felt seen and accomplished and successful and excited. And both of you two were just phenomenal to work with. And I'm gabbing at this point. Sorry. But it was huge to be able to demonstrate and to work with people who are willing and open to share their stories, because that's
Yeah.
how I've been. And our florists were just amazing to also work with, and they shared their stories. I wish I would have thought to bring them on this as well to hear all of it put together, but
Yeah.
yeah, just a gift to be able to be a part of.
You brought up an interesting point. I was thinking about it and I couldn't really think of any popular media that I could remember where menopause was talked about, represented, like nothing really came to mind. Do you guys have anything that comes to your head when you think about like representation of menopause in the media? Any shows, movies, anything like that?
Menopause, the musical.
Yes.
Okay.
Seriously. The Vagina Chronicles. I mean, they're kind of old now. I mean, it's been a long time, and those are the only two I can come up with.
Yeah. Good old theater.
Well, and can I say, like, even in the room with patients, it's still difficult for some women of certain age groups to still talk about sexual health. Like, it is, even though I'm a female provider,
Yeah.
it is still sometimes it requires a very safe space to be created for people to actually speak openly about this. But I think that if we do more stuff like this and we speak about it openly, because we're all going through it, it's going to help. But even like, so I am 39 years old, but I can tell you that women like 50 and older have a more difficult time speaking about this stuff than like my 40-year-old patients, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it seems like the tide is finally starting to turn where people are starting to talk about it. And And
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was just because I was starting to go through it, and so I started paying more attention, but I don't know that that's true. There was the big New York Times article a year or two ago, and when it came out, I was like, "Oh, let me read it." And it opened up a world that I had just never thought of. And that now I found people on Instagram, doctors and providers that I can follow, and there are books being published, but it's like, why is it so often that women's issues, women's health is not studied or taken care of? And
Mhm.
it's well, the answer is sexism.
It's misogyny, yeah, for sure.
All of those.
Yeah.
But it's really frustrating, but it's nice to see the tide starting to change, and hopefully this will be, the opening of a dam where it's like,
Mhm.
okay, let's talk about this. And I think, generationally, people are more comfortable talking about more taboo subjects because people are talking about more taboo subjects.
Right.
And the more it's brought up in conversation, and like I said before, it was part of the reason why I decided to take part in this, because I'm like, let's talk about it, because I don't want to be like in my house like, oh guys, don't look at me, no, I'm on HRT, goo. But thanks to things that are happening now, thanks to articles and providers that are putting themselves out there, I knew that I could start HRT,
Right.
um and get relief from those hot flashes. Ask me the last time I had a hot flash, I don't know.
Yeah. Teresa, I'm so glad you brought up that New York Times article. I think that was a huge thing for so many women. And if you're not familiar with it, Chloe and Marlee and Danielle, it's women have been misled about menopause, but the author talks specifically about, if half the population went through, Teresa, hot flashes and night sweats and irritability and flashes of anger and sleepless nights, and their penis felt dry, and hey, there would be something done about it, and women have just been told to deal with it.
Right.
Just suffer. And so it is fantastic that there are more conversations, that more people understand that there are options, that there is HRT, there are other alternative options, that, and what might work for me or might work for Teresa may not work for someone else. I talk to a lot of my friends about this, and every woman is unique in terms of
Yeah.
what might be the best option for her. So it's just great that there are providers who are speaking that language, like Marlee.
Yeah. And we're just not letting these topics of, menopause and sexual health like continue to be entrenched in shame, right? Like we're ditching that idea that we shouldn't be talking about it, that we should be ashamed of the way that we're feeling and the things that we're going through. I love that the general attitude around that is changing. Well, thank you so much for joining me. This has been an excellent chat about menopause. Like I said at the beginning, please make sure to head over to our Patreon and join us, where we're going to dig a little bit deeper with these contributors and ask some more questions of them. And if you do join us on Patreon, you're helping support our mission. So we'd love to see you over there. But ladies, do you have any websites or social media that people can find you at? I'm going to start with Marlee.
Yeah. So my medical practice is the best place to find me. It's www.mindbodysoulmedical.com.
Awesome.
And I have an Instagram. I'm the injector coach on Instagram, but on Facebook, I'm just Marlee Bruno. It's just my name.
Perfect. How about you, Bette?
My business is justraconsulting.com, and that's where you can find me to help with other types of transitions in your business life.
Excellent. Danielle?
Feel free to follow me on Instagram to kind of learn a little bit more about what I do during the day. And that's Danielle Indy, or follow me or connect with me on LinkedIn with Danielle Berry. And
How about you, Teresa?
You can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is at the quadruple threat. It's a spelling test. But on Facebook, you can find me under Teresa Reynolds.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us again, and we will talk to you a little bit more on Patreon. But in the meantime, thanks for listening, and let's talk more on Monday. Bye.